All right, it looks like it's hot. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Brushfire Mind. I'm Steve Rodemoyer, and standing in for our normal host, Chris Lowry. He's a bit under the weather and won't be in tonight. I have John Byrne with me this evening, and might have a bit of an abbreviated show, but we've got a little bit to talk about with the wrap up of the Democrat National Convention and their nominee, and probably whatever else comes to either my mind or John's that stems off of that. We'll just see where tonight takes us. So, John, I don't have the long soliloquy or the monologue prepared that Chris usually does, so we'll just get after it.
Okay.
We were talking a little bit before the show about the DNC and a little bit that happened. I didn't get to catch much of it, but we all know some of the highlights that had happened with it. Pardon me. We had been talking about, I guess, kind of the biggest story out of all of it was what came out of it from Bernie, the whole anti-Hillary movement he was in up until the beginning of this week.
As far as I can determine, maybe Hillary, or I'm sorry, maybe Bernie thought it was all about him. It never was about Bernie. Bernie was a figurehead for a movement, just like Trump is a figurehead for a movement. Trump may think he's got all the answers. It ain't about Trump. Why do I say this? Because I have been for Trump, but I say it's not about Trump. It's about the Trump movement. And that movement is a movement for real change. I don't want a corrupt government. I don't want the disaster that has been going on for not 8 years, not even 15 or 16 years, for 20 to 25 years. America is not the country that it used to be. As far as Bernie goes, maybe he really thought that people liked his message. I don't think it was about that message at all. I think it was all about opposition to corruption and wanting somebody, anybody, not Hillary. So when Bernie went over and was forced to bow to Hillary, it just solidified the message into the minds of Bernie supporters. At the same time, Hillary has made so many enemies that they're all just taking their shots now while they can, because everybody who has enough background that they don't want a Hillary Clinton presidency. But she can't reach across an ocean and assassinate Vladimir Putin. So he can release the 30,000 emails, or Guccifer can, or Julian Assange can. Pick your guy. It doesn't really matter. She's pissed off so many people and made so many errors that they are all now magically, mystically falling into place this late in the game. When Bernie was forced to get out of it, he did not take his followers with him. The Democrats, or what is represented by the Democratic National Committee, maybe they thought they could continue to pull another fast one. The tenor of their emails was very arrogant. It's as if they consider their own constituents to be stupid sheep. And lo and behold, now everybody realizes that they have been taken for a ride. Along with those emails, the Clinton Foundation cash money is not going to go away. Benghazi is not going to go away.
Well, the Benghazi thing's kind of been swept under. A lot of people, I mean, even the people that support her, and they're still there. I know a few that showed themselves this week. None of them, Benghazi doesn't bother them in the least. It's been investigated to death. Nobody's doing anything about it. Somebody should just shut up about it. And arguably, I think Benghazi at this point doesn't gain ground. It's been beaten too long with nothing done about it.
It doesn't matter.
Have
it's
legs.
Part of a rolling tide.
Exactly. So can you take what the newer stuff is and roll backwards with it and make up for that lost ground? Maybe.
She's done. I don't see. I mean, a candidate can recover from one or two falls,
Mm-hmm.
but every week there's another disaster.
Yep. And then this thing was
another thing.
Benghazi. What? Cade, you got something to say?
Yeah, and part of the other thing that you were mentioning about the rolling tide is, doesn't matter what washes over one thing, it all comes to shore eventually. Yes,
and people will basically look at the volume of the water and say, wait a minute, one guy will say, I remember Benghazi. Another fellow will say, I remember Orlando. Another guy will say, well, what about the emails? Another person will say, what about the Clinton Foundation? And then they all look at each other and they all realize that, wow, my God, there's a scandal every week. I just want to throw all the bastards out, and especially her. And that's what the Bernie kids are saying.
That's right.
So Bernie Sanders could stand up and wave golden pom-poms in front of her, and it ain't going to freaking matter, because it ain't about Bernie and his silly-ass haircut. It's about...
No, it's really not. I was kind of shocked to have seen things going the way that they are. I really expected that a lot of the stuff that has still been pulsing at the forefront of the news stories and people who are so ardently against Hillary Clinton, even staunch Democrats, it all just keeps piling on.
Yeah.
And she's not able to escape it.
Nope.
And by the end of the Democratic National Convention, I was like, wow, this just became a real big win for Donald Trump.
Not just a win, it may be the destruction of the Democratic Party. The Republicans had a coup.
And
Donald Trump pulled off a coup against the Republican establishment and got rid of all the anointed candidates. They're all gone. And with them goes the neocon Republican establishment, the George Bush-style Republican. They're gone.
And he did a very effective job of it, too.
Yes, he did. They're gone.
He did a very effective job. Because not Marco Rubio, but Ted Cruz, when he got up to the RNC and gave the speech that he gave, and Trump, by his own admission, said he saw the speech, or read the speech 2 hours prior and said, let him do it. Just go ahead. And so he comes out on the floor, he's staring Ted Cruz down on the stage while he's up there doing that, and people are booing him. They're back on him.
Because Trump knew. Trump, all he did...
Oh, Trump knew full well.
He allowed Cruz to put the noose around his own damn neck. And Cruz was so arrogant that he thought he could get up on that stage and cover his ass for 2020. He had no idea that the lashback would be so significant. I expect that Ted Cruz is done. He has been ineffectual in Congress. He's pissed everybody off. They're nice with Trump, and maybe become a Supreme Court justice. He's useless in Congress. He's pissed off too many people.
Because, and the great thing about it was, because it is getting rid of a lot of this establishment.
That's right.
They made such a huge, huge stink about signing this agreement that everybody would back the eventual nominee. And look how fast all of those establishment jackasses ran when it became totally apparent that
they all ran away like little freaking lying cowards. Everyone saw it.
Oh, yeah.
You can't back away from that one. Just like Hillary Clinton cannot back away from all the nasty things she's done. Too bad, Hillary. You're stuck with Benghazi. Too bad. You're stuck with Lolita Island. You're stuck with Bill Clinton, who's sitting there in the audience, looks sick as a dog, and he's dying from a sexually transmitted disease. That's the rumor. Oh, you think I'm kidding?
I don't think you're kidding. I was laughing someone else thought that it looked like he was kind of a warmed over corpse in the style of Weekend at Bernie's.
Yeah, and how old is he? He's maybe 68. He is far too young to be looking like a 90-year-old man. He looks bad.
Yeah.
I did not post this. Somebody else posted it, but I was thinking it. Hey, he must be on uppers when he's giving those speeches. And I think he was. They pumped him full of uppers. He gave his speech. He had a little bit of the fire he had back in the mid-1990s. Then he hit that chair, crashed right to sleep. He slept all through Hillary's speech and Chelsea's speech. And if you look close at his face, you can see all the makeup covering the red blotches on his face.
Yeah.
I am not
making. He was teetering on the verge at all times.
He's in trouble. He's going to die by the end of the year. That's my guess. He is sick. And the rumor is that he caught himself a case of HPV virus. One too many blowjobs.
Didn't know there was such a.
Well, there you go. The rumor is that he's got HPV cancer. And another rumor is that Hillary Clinton herself has also got some kind of a neurological disorder. I don't know if you've been paying attention to the internet videos, but every now and again when she gets surprised or is in a funny situation, she goes into twitchy mode. Now, the Christian type people are saying, oh, well, that's Satan trying to come out of her, or that's her conscience trying to restore itself. Or maybe she's just got a couple of screws loose neurologically, because some of these movements that she's doing are like a person with, what's the disease that makes you go, twitchy or whatever it is?
Parkinson's.
Either Parkinson's or the one that makes you do like curse words. In other words,
Tourette.
Yeah, it's like Parkinson's mixed with Tourette's. It's bizarre. I've seen her do a couple of weird twitchy things, and I ain't the only one. Millions of people have seen those things. So the powers that be have got to take a look at her, and if I can see them at my distant place on a computer, I guarantee they can see them too. Now, Trump drew attention to it. She has not given a press conference in 240 days.
I heard about that. That's kind of interesting for a campaigning.
A campaigning person who desperately needs press time, who is getting killed in the polls. She should be all over the press. It ain't happening. Why is it not happening? And now, I don't even know if the various speeches that she gives, the hairstyles are all different. So I didn't know when those speeches came out. For all I know, she could already be dead. I'm just getting videos of her. You think I'm kidding?
Yeah.
No, I don't. It's only funny because
it's true.
She's sick. She's sick too.
Yeah.
I just wanted to read some viewer statements just to show we do have a little interaction here and there. One thing, I know I downplayed the Benghazi thing a little bit because of how fast it went out of the news cycle. Somebody, I'm getting more statements as we go. Never forget that Stevens was brutally sodomized because of the Benghazi shit. About the 4 that died there didn't just die; they weren't just shot. There was some pretty nasty stuff done. But as the Anointed One had said, but at this point, what does it matter, right?
Yep. Those are the words that will come back to haunt her. That's like
so.
Richard Nixon saying.
I hope that haunts everybody in her family from here to the end of time.
And it will. She will never walk away from those words. Never, never, never. She will never walk away from Benghazi. Now, it may not occur to you, but every veteran remembers.
Oh, yeah.
They all said that could have been me. Every State Department person remembers that could have been me. The police remembered Dallas. All the police remembered Dallas. They know who put Dallas together.
Well, thing about it, forgive me. The other thing about it was, never mind everything that happened leading up to Hillary Clinton taking the heat for the bank attack. You had, I think it was something 1,300 from Ambassador Stevens, God rest him.
Well, could you repeat that again, please? We got bad feedback.
I don't know. Chris joined the call, and that's kind of here.
Damn you, Chris!
Did I break you off? Well, I won't hang out for very long. I'm calling in from the East Metro. I got my whoopee and my drugs and feeling pretty rough. But watching the show, you guys are doing great. I appreciate everything you're doing for me. Thanks for
hey, you're our brother, right?
What's that, brother?
You're our brother. Of course, we're gonna help you out.
Hells yeah, I appreciate that.
Hells yeah.
It's our baby. We all got to take care of it.
That's right.
Yeah, buddy. All right. So yeah, Clinton is basically on drugs. Oral sex is not the same thing as sex. Well, it's exactly the same thing, but it's not the same price. And wow. Here's the thing that we can all look forward to. We know Johnson's not going to win. We can hope that we get the third guy on the debate stage. I like that idea.
Well, you could vote for Jill Stein. You could vote for the Green Party. Come on, man. Hug a tree.
But I would like to see Johnson on the stage between the left nut and the right nut. That'd be
Might as well.
That'd be hilarious.
Yeah.
You just want to see
Here's what we're going to
public.
see. Oh yeah, and he needs to be center stage every time just for that joke.
I think.
The
But the
worst
thing that
thing
we're
for the
about to start
Libertarian
seeing a
Party
lot
is
of.
Gary Johnson on stage.
Well, hang on a minute. The thing we're about to start seeing a lot of, Hillary can't hide anymore. She's gonna have to speak more and more and more. And just like the reaction to her speech at this convention was not even lukewarm. I mean, she basically got up there and flubbed. So what we're gonna see going forward is Hillary's gonna be forced more and more to be visible. She can't hide anymore. And as soon as she gets on a debate stage with Donald Trump, he's going to have the facts to back him up, and he's going to have the power of the asshole. So she's going to come
I'll tell you one thing. You talk about the facts to back up his argument, Chris. He better bring more than glittering generalities to his platform while he's talking. He can't just be, we'll be the best, we'll do it, I'll have it done. He better come up with some specifics, or she could eat him alive with the right writers.
See, he's
doesn't have the right writers. I remember the 2008 debate. In 2008, he was in a debate with Barack Obama. And I consider that she made a mess of that debate. A lot of people do not remember that debate. But she stepped all over herself. In the process of that debate. It wasn't well done. And you could see that without a speechwriter handy, she is not able to think quickly on her feet. Trump can.
Okay. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to go ahead and get off the call since you're getting a lot of feedback.
Okay.
And it may or may not be from my end. So love you guys. Appreciate it.
So get better.
Feel better.
Get better.
Take care, guys.
Why don't you try it out? We're still getting feedback. I'm going to mute myself.
Yeah, so this is me talking. You guys getting feedback from my loop? Patrick, are you getting feedback? Okay, unmute your mic. You're not unmuting your mic? There you go. Now talk to me, because I wasn't hearing anything.
Okay. How about now?
You're on a bad delay, but I'm not getting an echo.
Okay.
Am I getting an echo? Oh, I heard it.
You're not echoing to me.
I'm echoing to me.
I'm getting a little bit of you.
However, I'll just let you
That's
talk.
better than it was.
Go ahead, Patrick.
Yeah, well, to go back to what I was saying before Chris jumped in, you got to remember the 1,300 emails they uncovered of Ambassador Stevens begging for help, backup, and then finally to get him out of there.
Mm-hmm.
And that was kind of glossed over as well, which I thought was even more important than the fact that the attack actually happened, was that he knew that it wasn't some dumbass video that Hillary Clinton kept coming up with. It was a legitimate threat. He knew it. The guys there knew it. And God bless those guys for fighting like hell the way that they did and putting up the final stand. But
Right.
it didn't have to happen because Hillary was sitting on her ass with her thumb up it, you know. And it was surprising to me because I was kind of getting a little bit disheartened with everything that had been going on with how people were trying to pick apart Trump at the RNC and then leading up to the Democratic convention, which there was one really great bit that came out of that one. A bunch of people pointed it out. But how flat the Democratic convention felt the whole way through.
I think a lot of that. I think a lot of that snapped after Bernie's followers left, because I had heard that half of that arena emptied. I don't know for sure. I didn't see good comparison photos, but they said about half of the people walked out.
Well, I wouldn't be surprised, and I wouldn't blame them either after it became completely, blatantly obvious that it was rigged.
Yeah.
Because it was one of the ones that I saw today that made it, excuse me, so perfect, made just the perfect point, was that after Barack Obama won re-election and Hillary Clinton wanted to be able to run for president the next time presidency came up for grabs, that her co-chair from her previous presidential campaign was Wasserman Schultz.
Yep.
So, what better way to position herself to be the nominee than to put her co-chair from her campaign in as the chairman of the Democratic National Committee? And who was it that they asked to resign in an effort to put Wasserman Schultz up there? You know who that was?
That would have been the former committee chair, Mike Payne.
No. The guy who's the chair of the Democratic National Committee at the time that Debbie Wasserman Schultz took over is Hillary Clinton's vice presidential running mate.
That's what I said, Payne.
Tim Kaine.
Payne, sorry.
Kaine.
I'm sorry, I don't read a lot of Democrat newsrooms.
Fair enough.
PA. That's right.
Yeah, you see how all of these wheels are working within the Democratic Party and how it is just, oh wow, the table is tilted. Who knew, right? In which only lends more credence to Trump's candidacy. He is anti-establishment. These people are fucking useless. We got to get in there and try and hit a reset button here. I saw another post. Somebody had put it up, and they had photoshopped a bunch of images around it, what they considered the dream team of like Trump's cabinet. And I was looking at it, and let me get y'all's opinion on this. You had, of course, Trump as president. You're going to have Mike Pence as vice president. Newt Gingrich as Secretary of State. I'll buy that. Alan West as Secretary of Defense.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I saw the same picture. And Trey Gowdy is
Attorney General, which I would love.
Mm-hmm.
And there was one more. Who was it?
There was, but I can't remember who it was.
How about Carson and Christie?
Yeah.
Carson is Surgeon General, I think, wasn't it?
Ben Carson is Surgeon General. That's right. Yeah.
I would like to see
Christie.
somebody tasked with demolishing and reconstructing Obamacare. That's a big task, and it needs an honest.
And Ben Carson do it.
Yeah. I'd also like to see a job for Chris Christie. He's been a good soldier, and he's very effective.
he has been. He kind of. They've been painting him more as if a pariah here lately.
He's not a
But
pariah.
no, he's not. I don't think he is.
He demolished
Um,
Marco Rubio. I remember what he did to Marco Rubio.
uh, I've been a fan of Chris Christie for a while, ever since he first became governor of New Jersey, and he got up in front of the state house and just said, "You want to know something? This is the way it is, and you don't like it? Boo-hoo." One of my favorite press conferences that he did, a reporter was asking him about his confrontational tone with the state legislature and how they've been butting heads, and it only seemed like he was there to argue, and his response was, "What do you think we were sent here for?"
Yeah.
We were sent here to argue. We were sent here to debate the points and get this thing done. I
The
think I'm
neocons
right.
and the Republican neocons, like the Bush family, had successfully repositioned the Republicans as the party of compromise. And so, lo and behold, for 20 years, we have had creeping Democratic policies. In other words, they're rhinos.
Mhm.
And they have redefined Republicans as rhinos. Well, George Bush and George Jr. can go to hell. I am not a New World Order rhino.
Yeah.
And they can't just own me because I happen to be registered as a Republican. They don't own me. They can go to hell.
Mhm.
And take their goddamn New World Order with it. I don't want it.
Right.
They're sociopaths. I know what those guys did. I never voted once for any of the Bushes. Not once. And I never regretted it. I remember George Sr. in the late 80s. And even back then, he had a reputation. Oh, yeah.
Well, he
Nobody
was a guy who
trusted
ran
him
the
back
CIA.
then. What's that?
He ran the CIA, for crying out loud. Come on.
Yeah, that's right. And he was, even back then, notorious for dirty tricks. I remember what he did to Ross Perot. Oh, yes. The rumor was that he had sabotaged Ross Perot's campaign. Trump is not the first Trump.
I can't pull my ears out that far.
We had Ross Perot in 1992. Perot tried to stop this whole New World Order NAFTA thing. He said, if NAFTA goes through, you will hear a giant sucking sound, and that's jobs leaving America. Lo and behold, it happened. And everybody called, oh, Perot, he's crazy, he's crazy. He was right. Because he was the only guy telling the truth. Now, Perot had the same problem as Trump did. Perot was kind of like a little banty rooster who always wants to crow. He would get on a stage and let me tell you this, let me tell you that. Perot was in love with Perot. Just like Trump is in love with Trump. But we made the mistake. We should have gone with Perot in the 1990s.
Wonder what the world would look like now.
So do I. Because I know what it looked like with George Bush and Bill Clinton, and I don't like it.
Yeah.
Right
So
on.
why
Well,
not
and
go
that's
with
the
Trump?
well, and
I
I
got
think
nothing
that
to love.
right.
I'm going with
And I think
anti-Bush and Clinton.
And I think that speaks a lot to why Donald Trump has had such an effective candidacy so far, is because he really reached out and he could be the blowhard that he really is.
Yep.
And it would capture the people's imagination because they are tired of the establishment bullshit. They're tired of the Hillary Clintons. They're tired of the Bushes. They're tired of the Rubios and the Cruzes and everybody else who's been up there for 20, 30 years.
And all the
They're sick.
mannequins. Yep.
Right.
The
Because
last.
what's it got? One of my favorite ones was right after Barack Obama won re-election. And this speaks to how far the discontent within his own party has reached. I saw this black guy at Walmart. He was wearing one of those black T-shirts with Obama's face emblazoned on it right after he won the first election. 4 years later, I see that same guy in Walmart wearing that same shirt, except he's taken red tape and put a big circle and a line through. And I asked him what changed his mind. He said, "Man, that son of a bitch has fucked this country up more than I ever thought possible by a white boy."
Yeah.
Whoa.
What a way to screw yourself.
Well, you think about it, especially at that time, everybody wanted something different. You said yourself you didn't like what Bush did. A lot of us didn't like what Bush did. Some of the stuff was, I suppose necessary. Some of it really wasn't. The Patriot Act pissed a lot of us off.
The Patriot Act was so, yeah.
Well, and for the things that came out of that, I think everybody, as far as the whole hope movement thing that Obama had touted during that first campaign and things, I think people wanted to believe that. I think that's why so many got behind him, was because it was something entirely different. But having not been properly vetted in the press, people not having chased the paper trails, the information trails, and everything to know who he was, just voted for different. They didn't vote for correct.
Right.
Well, to be fair, the media in 2008 really suppressed negative information about Obama.
That's true.
There were rumors about Jeremiah Wright, and within 2 weeks, those rumors disappeared. There were rumors about his drug use. We didn't hear any rumors about his homosexual relationships. Those didn't come out until quite recently. Now it comes out that not only is he gay, but that he had somehow mysteriously 4 or 5 of his gay lovers died right before the election of 2008. Disappeared, gone, car accident. There were other little ugly rumors. And it was very Clintonian in how his potential problems disappeared. Well, how would you like to have been one of the fellows who knew Barack Obama back when he was 25? You were his roommate or something like that, and you said he was a piece of shit. And next thing you know, hey, where's Steve? Oh, well, I don't know. That's what Hillary Clinton happened. In the 1990s, Bill and Hillary Clinton, I mean, there were VCR tapes about them in the mid-1990s. The crimes and the 100 deaths of Hillary Clinton in the 1990s, 20 years ago, back when they were talking about Troopergate. Did you ever hear about that?
I did, but it's been a long time.
Okay. Troopergate was Arkansas state troopers were being used to procure girls for Bill Clinton. Some of them were willing, some of them were not. How about Travelgate? Well, that's when she hired her own favorite people and kicked out the pre-existing travel arrangement office in the White House to put her own people there. Just so many little issues. It's been the Clintons have always been an imperial presidency. And of course, the Bushes got along famously with that.
Oh, yeah.
They weren't enemies. As long as the Clintons got their old payola and Bush got his props, why, they were perfectly fine with each other. There was any ideological differences were just for the rubes.
And that's come out all about here in a couple years too. Yeah.
Ted Cruz, he's all into that New World Order stuff. He'd get his wife Heidi is all for North American Union. She was backing it. Nancy Pelosi made a speech about the North American Union 3 weeks ago. They're already, it was President Fox of Mexico was touting North American Union. Now I notice that whole North American Union thing has mysteriously faded away. In other words, all the rats are running for cover because they realize that people don't want it. Even the Mexicans don't want it.
That was a well-timed exit by Great Britain from the European Union because it was calling attention to ideas like that.
Well, the European Union is a disaster. It's just a damn disaster. And it has unfortunately put Angela Merkel, who has got to be the most incompetent leader imaginable, as de facto leader of Europe. She is able to inflict her little boo-boos on Belgium, on Netherlands, on Scandinavia, on Sweden, all over the place. She opens her doors and her legs to 2 to 5 million disease-ridden Muslim terrorists, and doubles down on it every time there's a Muslim terrorist incident. She says, it doesn't matter, we're keeping open borders. It doesn't matter, and keeps saying this. Keeps saying it to such a degree that people are saying not only is she unqualified, but she's a traitor, and she must be corrupt. Anybody with a shred of political sense would say, my people hate this policy I've done, I got to back away from it. Not her. She's doubled down on it.
Yeah. And we've got people here that think that'd be the right answer for us to do too. I'm a libertarian. I am not an open borders libertarian. But there are people here who think we ought to just who have immigration just as one word. No matter how people come in, it's just immigration. It's not illegal invasion. It's not legal immigration with papers and oaths and promises.
It's just migration. Borderless world.
Yeah.
So
and
why
there
do
are people
the locks off their door? Take the locks off your door, open your windows, and let the flies in your house. Because you believe in a borderless world. Why not a lockless door?
Yeah, that's it. If people are so trustworthy and sweet, why do we have locks on our doors?
Yeah. So, I gave up on the Libertarian Party years ago.
I know, we've talked about that.
We've discussed this. But the primary issue that I had problems with them, it came down to two issues. One is that these guys were all for, it was a very much a kumbaya, let's all do drugs and be happy. It was Bob Marley libertarianism. At the same time as open borders libertarianism. Primarily, it was the open borders plank. Back in the mid-1990s, they were cuckoo for open borders. I mean, open borders is a libertarian concept. Even the Democrats weren't libertarian or open borders back then, but the libertarians were.
I would say the ultimate in libertarianism would be a complete social anarchism. It would be. But you can only enforce those.
Then social anarchism, does that mean I get to shoot my neighbor if I don't like him? That's social anarchism.
Well, hold on. This is one thing that we do a lot on this show, and I don't think it's entirely fair to anybody with a different idea when you play off the most unlikely extreme of something when critiquing a stance you don't agree with. The idea that at anarchy everyone would just die because people would be shot, I think you'd run into that. I think you very well could. But even the things we've talked about, like small groups of people subsisting on their own separate from other things, are the kind of things that grew out of old school anarchy and became small governments that became part of larger conglomerates that became a nation. Well, those are the kind of things that do work. The idea that a small batch of people could make things work and defend themselves against other batches of people, or at least be strong enough to make each other deal instead of one just simply steamrolling over the other. I don't agree with 100% on anarchism. I'm kind of a minarchist. I believe a little bit of government's okay. I believe a unified national defense is a good thing. But the whole open borders at any cost, I mean, just the minimum. If we have any kind of a welfare system, you cannot have open borders because a country cannot afford to pay for the entire globe.
That's what it comes down to. If you think about it, 150 years ago, we had open borders. If you wanted to go to Mexico or a Mexican wanted to come here, they got on a horse. There was no border patrol. There was a desert. But once you got here, there is no welfare.
That's right.
If the gringos want to hire you, or you can't buy land or whatever it is, yeah, you could actually buy land. You could go, ride your horse, your caballo from Mexico all the way up to Nevada, stake out a piece of land, and as long as nobody took it from you, it's yours. Hell, you squat on that land for a few years, now it's yours. And nobody cared. That's open borders. But along with open borders came rattlesnakes, Apaches, deserts,
highwaymen.
That's anarchy. You were on your own. No welfare.
That would be the best example of it. Was the Old West frontier. Only in the fact that the only way people really made anything happen was the mutual agreement that they were going to work together.
Yes.
You still had people that started companies. You still had people that worked for companies, so to speak. You had the barmaid that worked for the bar owner and things like that in the traditional movie-style Wild West town.
Sure.
So you still had employers and employees and different ranges of how people were treated and how they were appreciated, things like that. And you had folks like Billy the Kid and the other names are escaping me, but you had a fair share of outlaws that made their money that way. And just like now, the only thing that stopped those were guys with guns. But we're going to be chasing rabbit holes. We stick around that side too long. The other side of it, you talked about the Libertarian Party that way. And I know you had the open borders problem, which I think everybody on this channel does have an issue with the open borders for any number of reasons.
Sure.
The other side of it would have been, I know we talked about that too. You had two reasons. One was the open borders. I know as far as the drug thing, being open to legalizing drugs and letting adults make their own decisions is a little bit different than just wanting everybody to get high and coexist.
That was the way it was posted or presented back then. Now, even back then, I would have said, if you want to do drugs, it's on you. If I am a heroin addict and I take a bunch of heroin and I'm going to die, that should be on me. However, in the modern interpretation, we have an anti-heroin antidote called Narcan or something like this. It's some kind of heroin treatment. You take a shot of this and it saves your life.
Right.
There are people who have had half a dozen or more events where they would have or should have died from a heroin overdose, and yet they did not because they had Narcan. It has now become, I think 47 out of 50 states allow people to buy Narcan over the counter.
Okay.
So you can continue to do your heroin, and here's your bailout pill. And so these people continue to live. I read in a Democratic paper the other day that even the Democrats are starting to say maybe Narcan is a mistake because it's just prolonging their agony. Which is a left-handed way of saying maybe we got to let these people die. I was surprised to read that article there, but I read it. That's not the kind of thing that a Democrat we think of a Democrat as saying. We tend to think of them as, let's all save the whole world, kumbaya. But this was an article that was making a left-handed statement about we are just continuing a problem when people have a bailout pill or a bailout injection, whatever it is.
Well, that's the other side of it too. That's what makes this such a sticky situation. Especially, I think when it's just the two of us, I can go back to not playing cameraman and switching these. I'm sorry if I've been lagging behind. I know I didn't put myself up here much. But I think that's one of the sticky situations in a libertarian platform with a legalization of all drugs. And John McAfee explained it a little bit, but nobody went into extreme depth in any of any parts of the libertarian debates. But at the very least, the decriminalization of things like heroin and the mandatory minimum sentences and things like that. His point was that the heroin addiction, talk to anybody who's been through a heroin addiction about what they go through and how bad things are there, that it is almost its own punishment. And why would you want to double up on that and things if all they're hurting is themselves and they're not breaking any other laws? It's a chemical addiction for them and a form of recreation. But
you don't remember 15 years ago, or maybe you're 40 years old, right? You remember 15 years ago. What was the drug of choice in America 15 years ago?
Crack.
Crack, which is a cocaine derivative. It was poor man's cocaine. Then we have a war in Afghanistan, and lo and behold, heroin shows up in the streets of America. 90%.
It went backwards off of that, remember. Things that weren't controlled as much as they are now, these are actually the result of it. But it went from crack and the crackdowns on that and the cocaine busts. and things into meth and the bathtub, the basement lab.
It went from cocaine to crack to meth. Meth was the king for about 2 or 3 years in the early 1990s, early 2000s.
Until they started cracking down on it harder, made the pills harder to get a hold of,
and
regulated.
Next thing I gotta have my fix. Here's some heroin.
The funny thing is, heroin became the cheap alternative to meth, of all things.
How could that be? 90% of the world's opium comes from Afghanistan.
You're right.
Afghanistan is landlocked.
Mm-hmm.
A landlocked country in a war with, let's see, Russia on one corner, Iran, and Pakistan. There ain't any other way out.
That's
which
true.
Means you got to figure out a way to fly out of that country. Now, who has a plane that can go over these areas? Because it's not a single-celled or a single-engine Cessna that's flying this opium out.
Flying it in from Colombia across Cuba.
It's gigantic freaking aircraft cargo liners. 90% of the world's opium comes from Afghanistan. All of a sudden, all that Afghanistan opium appears magically on the streets of America.
But it's sort of. But I still don't put it above. I mean, how many miles of the borders are patrolled constantly? And if you are dealing in heroin, there's a lot of money there. You look at the money that came out of the cocaine trade.
It's not coming from Mexico.
Yeah, you can bring it in that direction. What I'm saying,
but most of it's produced in Afghanistan. How is it getting from Afghanistan to America?
Well, that's what I'm saying. The stuff that was produced in Colombia, once it was cooked in things, it came in any myriad of ways. You could bring it on boats, you could bring it in planes, you could bring it in a lot of ways. The main thing was you couldn't just do it without paying people. And there was enough money in that trade. Escobar had offered to pay off the national debt of Colombia for a pardon.
That was cocaine.
That
was cocaine, not heroin.
But where there's a will, there's a way. If they could get the stuff out of Colombia across a couple of rather large gulfs and ocean sections and whatnot.
I'm not talking about coke.
But they did fleets of planes getting the stuff out of there.
I get it. Where there is a demand, there will be a supply. I understand that. But this is a supply that magically appeared and took over the American drug market because heroin was not the mainstream drug or the main heavy-duty drug.
No, that's right.
10 years ago. Now it is. That's collusion at a high level. Somebody wanted heroin. Now heroin's a downer. Just like marijuana is a downer. It sedates the population.
Right.
Meth and coke are uppers. It makes the population more agitated. It's the go-go drug. Now, if you are the powers that be, do you want your restive population to be on the go-go drug? We're going to come and hang you from a lamppost if they're all hyped up on coke?
No, that's a point.
Or would you rather have them on pot? Hey, man, the national debt's fucked up, man. Who cares? Give me another shot of that.
Yeah,
a little marijuana, a little heroin, a little Pokemon, and who cares, man?
Oh no, that's a hell of a party. I'm thinking. The other side of it is, for as inept as our government is at anything else, the idea that they're managing something that large like that is still hard to swallow 100%.
You don't need to manage it.
That's enterprising privateers.
You've got a bunch of Afghan warlords.
Mm-hmm.
You have to keep these Afghan warlords generally in relative peace so that you can pretend you have peace so you can bring the troops home. To do that, you promise them an economy. Yeah, so the Afghan warlord, I got to sell my dope. Okay, well, load it on this plane. We take this plane, we fly it all the way from Afghanistan, somehow it magically appears in the streets of America. And now it has several advantages. It sedates your ghetto population, and it employs thousands of policemen, thousands of lawyers and prosecutors and all those prison guards, you're golden.
But isn't that Keynesian economics at work?
I guess. If
You
you
break the
think
window,
that
it creates jobs.
importing toxins into your country to employ prosecutors and prison guards is a good works program,
Makes as much sense.
it's devious, it's criminal.
Yeah.
Importing drugs because you know that someone's going to take them, and therefore you can arrest them, and therefore you can run a program around that person to save him the drugs you imported.
Yeah.
That's pretty
It's
criminal.
self-defeatist, but no, I mean, you've got a point. It's one way to put it. I still don't buy that the government's behind that much of it because of what privateers are capable of. But it is an absolute
They are
plausible.
not capable of flying a giant cargo plane full of heroin out of a country under military control. How many Taliban do you happen to know have a giant cargo plane? They're goat herders. Somebody had to provide them.
It doesn't have to be in-country people flying it out of there either. Like I
Somehow
said,
or
there
other.
are miles and miles of that.
It's not just okay. That would have been true if it had trickled up and trickled up. It didn't trickle up. It was practically no heroin to all of a sudden overnight, massive amount of heroin, and it took over the streets quick.
I don't know how long. I'd have to try to see if I could track down how fast it had leached its way back in, because I know it had been big for a while there. What, late '60s, early '70s? It had been
Mid '70s heroin was the thing.
Until Coke broke loose. You know.
And then Coke came around, and all of a sudden Coke. I don't know. I mean, who am I to question the professional loyalty and competence of the DEA? But then again, I am faced with the prospect of questioning how tons and tons and tons of heroin got from a landlocked country at war across hostile territory and across 3 oceans and magically appeared in the streets of America just in time to sedate a mass population which is about to break loose into a fucking riot. Bingo.
Yeah. I'd have to chase some stats about that. I'd have to see how fast it spread, where it epicentered, because it was kind of
tune up, tune down, tune up, tune down.
Those areas. I mean, it's the people that I know that got busted for the heroin dealing and trafficking and stuff like that weren't big city people. Most of them were the area that were like.
You don't have to be. You just drop them 200. You know, you bring in 200 tons of heroin. Distributed to the top guys, whoever those top guys happen to be, and they pass it around.
The mechanics of it, don't get me wrong, but stuff like Coke's explosion came out of clubs in the cities.
Oh.
Stuff like that. Where I want to know where heroin made its big influx all of a sudden, because I didn't hear about that coming through cities. That came through rural areas from what the anecdotal stuff that I know.
That's a good question. Where did it first appear? For instance, we know in the mid-1980s, Arkansas, Little Rock, Arkansas, was a cocaine transshipment point.
Yeah, Mena Airport.
Yeah, Bill Clinton's. That was one of his big money makers was cocaine transshipment.
Yep.
Oh, I can't say that about a former president. Hell, I can't. He did it.
Yep. Planes flew, refueled, and took off. Were never explored, even though they came in out of South America and they knew it.
That's right. Now, the problem is, okay, I understand and expect that we're always going to have corrupt politicians and corrupt people.
Since the dawn of time. Yep.
Correct. The trouble is when there get to be so many of them that the corruption becomes the name of the game, and corruption is your government. All governments have a little bit of corruption. It's just like everyone has a couple of latent illnesses or whatever.
Oh, yeah.
But when those illnesses take over, the person dies.
Yeah. And if you take the analogy and apply it to government.
Sure. Basically, for instance, if you had chicken pox as a kid, you're going to get shingles as an adult when you get old, when your immune system wears down, and so forth. Yep. Well, we have a national case of chicken pox, shingles, polio, whatever, you name it. All of these various corruptions that have been suppressed for many years by a natural immune system which was that our government and our population were working together. Now that they're not, all of the latent problems that corruption brings are all rising to the top, just like Ferguson, just like New Orleans. All of a sudden, the pipes break, and everyone says, "Who could have seen this happening?" Really? For 25 years,
Yeah, all the people
ignoring those pipes.
Right.
If you wanted to stop Ferguson, you'd have to go back to 1990 and say, "No, you're not going to divert the money." You go back to New Orleans back in 1990. "No, you're not going to divert the money for the levees."
Right.
Okay? How about Monsanto? What kind of a corrupt government would allow a company to so monopolize the agricultural production of this country that if Monsanto chooses to, they can shut off the food production and the country will starve?
I don't know. Once again, I don't know enough about that situation other than looking into the GMOs and the research and stuff when everybody was up in arms about labeling their food and all this crap.
Would you want to eat GMOs?
You eat them all the time. You ever had corn?
Of course.
Corn is not
modified. Is a dog a wolf? I don't know. Does it matter? But yes, I realize that corn has been hybridized and all that kind of thing by natives for thousands of years. I get it.
But it's all the same thing. It's tweaking a bit of a gene. It's essentially hands-off splicing whenever you're crossbreeding and things.
Let me put this one to you.
All percentage. Well, just so you know, we're coming up. We've only got a couple of minutes left, so I don't want to go too deep into this. We can make this another show.
Okay.
Because I know there's a lot with Monsanto.
Take a packet of Splenda and put it, open it up, put it next to an ant nest. They'll avoid it. Ants don't touch that shit.
No, they don't eat borax either unless you mix it with sugar.
They won't touch Splenda. Humans gobble that stuff down. You always see some giant Walmart cow with a packet of Splenda. "Oh, it's for my diet," says a 400-pound woman.
I do know it helps diabetics get around it. So, but it's either that or aspartame. Which one's more evil?
Why are they diabetics in the first place?
That could be 1,000 reasons.
Somehow or other, we didn't have diabetics for thousands of years. Now we have a mysterious outbreak of diabetics.
Well, remember, for thousands of years, we had people drinking urine to diagnose illnesses. Probably didn't know anything about diabetes.
And yet those same people lived to be, how long did Benjamin Franklin live? He was 85 years old.
Hey, I know people that have smoked cigarettes and cigars all their lives, lived over 100. And I know people that have been 9 years old and died of cancer, man.
Sure.
You never know when your number's up.
I guess, but they didn't die. They didn't have the massive numbers of diabetics. Also, heck, you can look at a picture from 1850. You don't see any fat kids.
Well, no, because everybody walked.
There you go. Now if you go down to Walmart, okay, I was in Walmart just this very day, and what did I see in Walmart but a couple of uniformed people? Mm-hmm. And they were wearing these very strange-looking military uniforms. And I walk up and say, "Is that the new Air Force ACU?" Because they look kind of bluish. Well, they've changed the Army uniforms. No longer the ACUs. Remember the digicams?
Yeah.
Now they've gone back to the. It looks like a kind of a bluish tiger stripe kind of a thing. It's green. Camouflage, whatever. Somebody got a sweetheart deal to sell new uniforms. That's another $1 billion contract.
Yeah.
Someone said, I need to make some money, so I will sell some new uniforms to the Army. New uniforms to the Army is billions of dollars. Somebody made some money there.
Oh, so sure.
A uniform is a uniform. Its job is to prevent you from getting shot, not to rotate it every couple of years because it's unfashionable. They kept the the 1990s, uniforms hadn't changed in many years. Mm-hmm. They weren't broken, but somebody wanted to make a new one. So they could make.
You go through the woods of Georgia, there's hardly anything that works better than olive drab.
That's right.
It's amazing.
They knew that. That olive drab was designed for fighting in America. Lo and behold. Okay. My point is, these people in these funny-looking uniforms, they had to have been regular Army because when I met them, it was Friday. It was not, so they couldn't be reservists. That means these are regular Army. The girl,
Okay.
27, maybe 25 to 27 years old. She was fat. She was 30 pounds overweight. The guy was 15 pounds overweight. If I had seen that, if I had been that soldier 10 years ago, they'd have run my ass ragged.
Oh yeah.
I could not believe that this is what the Army is accepting as soldier material now.
I think it's how Neil Young put it: the kindler, gentler machine gun man. Right? You don't make them mean and evil. You just let them wear a uniform and call them Army.
That Army, I had my doubts about the Army 8 to 10 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
The Army, from what I'm seeing from those two jokers today, if that is the Army, I pray to God we don't get into a war, because those two guys will die quick.
Yeah, I wouldn't argue that. The only solace I take in any of that across all the branches is the sheer amount of, well, now that they're getting bigger numbers, but the sheer capabilities and things of all our spec ops units all across.
Spec ops. You know, well, I mean,
it's not how many you kill sometimes. Sometimes it's about who you kill, and they're very, very good at surgical stuff. That's all I'm saying is we can get an awful lot done with spec ops that we couldn't do 30, 40 years ago, I don't think.
Okay.
Now, will it take the place of the standing Army?
You think all of our various special forces, we've got maybe 5,000. Is that enough to take on Russia? They have Spetsnaz too.
Well, yeah, and I'm not saying a complete mobilized, taking the place of conventional warfare, but a lot of what does get done, a lot of the key stuff, it isn't by the people that you ran into in that store. Those are still the people doing paperwork and driving trucks.
I get that. Okay. Nevertheless, if you're going to be stomping around on the borders of Russia, which Obama is doing, and pushing your weight around with China, whether China is right or wrong, if you're going to try to draw a line with China, you'd better be able to back it up. China has a lot of people. They could put 10 million people in uniform just like that.
Sure, but they got to get them across oceans.
Right. It's not about invading California. They don't need to invade California. If I was China, that's the last thing I would be doing. But they can certainly, they're pushing the weight around in that South China Sea. Obama has got naval confrontation with China and an army confrontation with Russia.
And something going on with North Korea lately, too.
Yes, and all kinds of nonsense going on. He's completely scattered. The guy doesn't know what the hell he's doing.
So much for getting us out of wars.
Yeah. This is your Mr. Nobel Peace Prize.
How have they not rescinded that yet? I hate to do it, John, but we're running up on our end time. So
I agree. Let's call it a night.
So it's been much fun. I am glad you were here.
Yeah, and you. We'll do it again. All right. Awesome.
Well, we thank you guys. It's a few minutes past 10. We ran a little bit over, but thank you for being here. I've seen we've had a couple of viewers and a few that came in and out. And as I said, with a normal host being under the weather, it was a little different with me trying to keep things. Hopefully it was entertaining. John was going to help be in my flow of information for the night. So I hope everybody enjoyed it. I hope it was informative and that you've learned something. If you would, please leave us some comments. Interact with us some. If you know something we don't, kick something out there. We'll talk about it.
Absolutely.
If you would, mind you, we have the Brushfire Mind on Twitter. We're on Facebook. Give us some likes there. Check us out. Obviously, you know where the YouTube channel is now. And also, if you're so inclined, like to help us expand a little bit, maybe clean up some things and do some higher quality stuff and maybe some little vignettes. Check out our Patreon account as well. By the time this is up, I do believe Chris will have notated everything in the comments below. So please, if you would, give us a thumbs up, subscribe if you like it. And as always, we're here Friday nights at 9 o'clock. And Chris usually does this, but I'll see if I can do it without screwing it up. Main thing we want you to remember is if you build a man a fire, you'll keep him warm for the evening. But if you set a man on fire, you'll keep him warm for the rest of his life. Good night, y'all.